Everyone, my name is Victor Chaitezi. I am the founding CEO of Tripplo. So very excited to be part of this session today. So looking forward to sharing our story and also sharing a lot of the insights that we managed to gather across the road. So who's Tripplo? We are a business headquartered in Bryanston, Johannesburg, based in South Africa. We also have a team in Cape Town. We've been operational for just over 3 years, intellectual property. In 2021, we were named South Africa's most innovative company with the work that we're doing in logistics. And we're also blessed to have investors such as Standard Bank, Founders Factory, and Digital Africa Ventures. So we currently have operations mainly in South Africa. We're opening up 2 to 3 other countries in the next few months. But we actually have users of our platform in over 14 countries on the African continent. And our vision really as a business is to be by far the best logistics platform globally. So as you know, African logistics is deemed as some of the worst in the world. So we want the next 10 years to rechange that, where African logistics becomes the best logistics globally. And that will be achieved via the use of technology. So I'm going to be sharing what we've done over the last 3 years to move from no business to be doing, in our last financial year, we processed about 370 million Rand of logistics transactions through our system, and we moved cargo worth 12.7 billion Rand in those 12 months. We actually probably reached this number in a space of 3 months in our new financial year. So we're quite excited about the journey we've taken. So I'm going to cover quite a number of different sections and areas that really speak to us as startups and the journey we've taken in alignment with our partnerships such as Founders Factory and Standard Bank. So my personal journey has been quite interesting. Education-wise, I did quite a few things as Jethro mentioned. Did a BCom, did a Master's in Entrepreneurship and a Master's in Business Leadership. From there, I went to work for Microsoft. And from there went to work in the investment space, after which I was analyzing listed stocks, so kept seeing an interesting line item in a lot of the listed companies, which was logistics and distribution cost. And from that, decided to buy trucks to exit formal employment and actually buy trucks to experience the logistics industry and learn about the value chain, so that we can pick up and figure out where the real opportunities lay. So that business actually led to the foundation of Tripplo, which I'll come to shortly. So this is an interesting picture of me running the trucking operation. So I was very, very hands-on. So with all the qualifications and corporate sort of life I've had, I had to go deep into the weeds of the industry, hang out with drivers in the worst of places, and learned a lot in running that small trucking operation. Running that small trucking operation, I faced a lot of problems, and those problems led to the creation of multiple Excel sheets, which is what we eventually turned into actual software, because I needed to use over 20 to 30 different platforms just to run my small trucking operation, and it was still very inefficient. So that's how Tripplo actually was formed, at the back of real-time, real-life experience in the trucking space, me running a trucking business, getting exposed to the whole value chain, which was my main intention, leaving corporate to get into the logistics space. So what does Tripplo do? So we are a cloud-based technology. So we are a technology company first before we are a logistics company. So we're building our technology aligned to the logistics space. So in the logistics space, you've got 4 core pillars, which is road, sea, air, and rail. So we started off with road because that's where the biggest challenges are. All those trucks that we all hate on the road are very, very critical to our economies across the world. So you find that no other form of logistics can exist without road freight. So remember, the ships will dock in Durban, in PE, in Cape Town, but they all require trucks to pick up those containers and move them somewhere. Rail, same thing. It pitches at the railway station. Trucks need to pick up the goods. Same thing with air. Trucks need to pick up at the airport. Trucks can exist without the other forms, but the other forms can't exist without the trucking space. So we decided to build a very solid technology platform in which we own all the IP. We build it from the ground up. It's licensable for customers. And it's also configurable. It's like a restaurant menu where you can choose what you want to use in our system, aligned to the road freight environment. And we also white label it for customers, and we meet exact customer needs. Our platform does 3 things. So we've got a software platform, which is a SaaS transport management system. So in that one, corporates actually take our technology and they use it to run and manage all their suppliers from a trucking perspective, send them orders, track them, do all the fancy things that are required to manage road freight logistics. In logistics as a service, it's like an Uber type model for freight. So in that model, we've got over 1,000 small to large trucking operators that we actually pair and match to blue chip companies. And then lastly, we wanted to democratize the industry. So you find that a lot of the small companies cannot deal with a large corporate because of payment terms. So in partnership with Standard Bank, we can actually pay, do purchase order assistance by buying diesel for transporters. And after the trip is done, them not having to wait for 30 to 90 days. So we offer multiple features. The way we've built our technology is we've modularized it, because you find that one customer's requirement is different from the other. So we're seeing interesting things where different customers are using our platform for various things. So our system, you can place trips electronically, track them electronically, manage contracts and rates, manage company vetting and verifications electronically, have very detailed analytical reports, manage fleets, which are trucks, trailers, and drivers, do automated route planning with profitability, where if you've never done a trip from Joburg to Cape Town, our system can calculate for you exactly how much money you should be expecting to spend to fulfill the trip. And we also are launching some logistics services where you will be able to come and buy anything you want from a trucking perspective on our system. So we're building a one-stop shop for all the various logistics elements across the board. So traction-wise, in our system, I've mentioned gross transaction value of 370 million in the last 12 months. On an annual basis, we move cargo with 12.7 billion, which is equivalent to 0.1% of our GDP. Soon we want to make it 1%, 2%, 10%, 20% of GDP flowing through our system. We've got over 1,200 B2B customers because we are a B2B player. And we've got over 16,000 fleets registered on our system, but we've got access to now over 70,000 fleet across 14 different countries on the continent. And, we're processing 300 large truckloads on a daily basis. Literally, our trips are going a minimum of 3 times around the world on a daily basis. And we're doing all this with a very, very small team of 18 people. So the technology element allows us to actually achieve seriously significant numbers with a very small staff complement. And I'll come back to some of the nitty-gritty elements. So how did the idea come about? So there are 3 ways I've thought about, like how ideas generally come about. One is very experiential. The other one is through visions and dreams, where you just wake up and say, hey, I saw something about drones. Let me go and build something about drones or AI, whatever it is. And then thirdly, a lot of us have a lot of business ideas in the bars, especially after 9 p.m. When you've had a couple, right? Where everyone wants to start a business, everyone doesn't want to do employment. So in the Tripplo sense, most of what led to the start of Tripplo was very experiential. I experienced terrible things in the logistics space that I just thought, listen, technology can do a much better job in solving these issues. And then there was a bit of vision and dream of saying, okay, if technology is if logistics is so inefficient, even with large blue chip corporates, why don't we change the whole industry, not just in Africa, at a global level? So the idea was birthed mainly out of experience, as well as from the vision of a better future. And also, what was quite interesting is that the corporate experience really helped. So a lot of us hate corporate, but I decided to turn my corporate experience into saying the paycheck I'm receiving from my employer is actually my customer. So that really helped me before I even got into entrepreneurship to start thinking entrepreneurially with my employer at Microsoft, Value Capital, wherever I worked. And it helped me with structured learning, learned about how things work, business rhythms, systems, processes, and structures. I got exposed a lot to how big business works. And in corporate, I also got access to a lot of networks. One of the most important things, and I'm just going to have a blunt conversation with you all, right, is that one thing I'd wished I'd done a bit more was maybe structured a bigger base for myself whilst I was in corporate, pay off my car, pay off a house. And so that when you start building your business, you're not worried about hand-to-mouth issues, because then you start making your decisions based on that. So I battled with that at the beginning, where now, you're not paying yourself as much as you're getting paid in corporate. The bills, COJ still wants their rates and taxes on time and all these things. So I could have used corporate much differently to just structure that base so that when I'm building the startup, I'm actually building it very, very sustainably. I'm not thinking about, bread issues. Yes, I want to sustain myself, but my base is very, very much covered. So if there are people on the group, on the call, who are in corporate looking to venture out, these are some of the things to think about. Like, what experiences am I getting that are not being solved technologically, or even if you're not a tech company, what experiences did I experience that I'm struggling with? And let me use my corporate learning experience to build a model for myself. Then once I had done that, how did I get the idea going? So at Intersol, which was the logistics operation, which is very different from Tripplo, built actually, 60 plus to really 100. If you just now take into consideration smaller Excel sheets. I built 60 different Excel sheets that were core to the business. And then I started running my own operation like that to say, okay, let me test it out in Excel. I went on YouTube. Instead of being on Facebook, I was on YouTube trying to learn about how do you build Excel macros and all these things to create my first MVP. Then I tested it thoroughly in my own operation, iterated it, and then found other people with the same problem, which was a lot of small trucking guys that were facing the same problem. And then I gave it to them so that they can just play with it. Forget IP, forget anything else. It was like, let people play with this thing and experience the Excel sheets. And from there, I actually gathered a lot of requirements and feedback. Once I did that, I then created what's called a customer advisory board, where I chose 10 different customers who I'd meet with on a regular basis, buy a coffee, understand, hey, you got this Excel, what else could you do? What else do you want to do inside the platform? So you see, I didn't need funding to get going at the very beginning to prove myself, because a lot of us get stuck in a world where we think, for me to progress, for me to structure something, I need funding. Yes, you do need funding, but at the beginning, kickstart it yourself, find something where you can actually prove your own initial MVP. Then we iterated with them, incentivized them, and eventually we validated the idea. From there, there are many ways in which we can access funding, right? Or early stage assistance, where you can either get it from personal funds. At Interso, I used personal funds and friends and family. A lot of friends had family not happy from an investment perspective at Interso. But at Tripplo, I then got assistance from a corporate program as well as a venture capital program, which you hear in a few minutes from Sachin and from Tabiso. And obviously with SEDA and CEFA, there are also elements which can actually get you going from a support perspective. So some of the key considerations at that time were, how committed am I, right? Like, before I even engage with SEDA or CEFA or Founders Factory, do I really want to do this thing, right? Was a very important consideration. And then I looked at, okay, this problem I'm solving, how big is this problem? Is there a real need which can grow really well? And can the business be sustainable and investable? And at that point, that's when I then partnered with Founders Factory Africa, which was a venture capital assistance I got, who helped me from the very get-go, even with the first lines of code, with the first marketing people, with the first sales people. So they really helped and structured the business in a way where we got it off the ground together, we partnered, and we got the business going. And very early on, I know a lot of people were always asking, like, hey, you're partnering with Founders Factory, don't you want to keep all your shares? I could keep shares of all my share, 100% of a 2 million business versus 10% of a R1 billion business, right? So don't be too hung up on your shares. And I learned that fairly early on. This also delayed my journey in terms of wanting to progress a bit faster. And then as Tripplo started, with the help of Founders Factory, version 1 that they helped us with was automating and optimizing operations for truckers. And then we pivoted 2 to 3, 4 times. However, these pivots for me were more iterations, because the first model, we were assisting the transporter and their trucks. Second model, second iteration, we were assisting the cargo brokers to access capacity. The third one, we were actually now at the money, assisting cargo owners directly. And then eventually, from all that feedback, that's where we came with our core, which is our software as a service, which is the fourth, where we allow corporates to manage all their logistics, especially in cases where they can't extend their ERP. So as we were iterating and pivoting, so even if you're not in tech, even if you're manufacturing toothpicks, you can always iterate and pivot at any point in time, as long as you're giving customers what they need in alignment to your vision. From there, I really had to build multiple levels of teams, right? So I had to think about my operation, think around, there were 3 core areas, which is strategy, core operations, and support services. So in strategy, got a board from my investor board and the strategy office. I sit in the strategy office with my co-founders. And then in the core operations, we have the technology, we build technology, which is then sold. And once the sales are in, it then moves over into fulfillment operations. So I had to separate my teams in that manner. And all those core operations are supported by HR, finance, and ops admin. So that was very important in terms of how do I build a team that can cover a lot of these bases and basics that allow us to really scale. And Founders Factory and Standard Bank played a big role in helping us with this thinking, learning from global standards with global exposure. And inside building that strong team, I just showed you the operational team, and then we had a co-founding team. So I started off as a single co-founder, and then I now have two other co-founders who I brought in much later in the journey. A lot of us, there's a lot of ego with us startups where I just want to be the only one who's the founder of the business. But you can only take your business to a certain point, and that's where you need a different level of skill, different level of partnerships across the board. And there will be challenges, right? I've experienced a lot of these challenges, staff churn. You spend 3 months waiting for someone on the pitching day, they don't pitch up. We have things like seasonal pressures where the team that I have right now might not be the right team for me in 12 months time, right? And then you've got, CCMA challenges. You've got, you become a training ground where big corporates then poach your staff because they've been so exposed to a lot of things like vision misalignment, a lot of stakeholder pressures, and also changing ambitions. So there've been a lot of serious problems I've faced from a people perspective, which is one of the core things in my business across the board. What did I then do? I had to be creative about it. I had to let go of some shares, give the team some shares through ESOPs. I had to ask for help from stakeholders such as Standard Bank and to get best practices, get ideas on how best you manage people. And also I'd learned to hire people who are not like me, because it's so easy for us to hire people who we like and who are just like us. So I've had to learn not to hire people who are like me. I've learned to also give my team very big challenges. I used to be one of those guys who would be very deep in the detail, and I'm not thinking strategically, not trusting the team. So I've had to let go, give people the challenge, let them go fail, explore. And you do that by putting systems in place, making sure that you're well protected and the systems can work from an efficiency perspective. And I've also given the team very high levels of autonomy where they can make decisions so that I can not be in the office and people can still make decisions. And then early on, I hired very junior team, which was fantastic at the time, but it can only take you a certain level. So I've had to now, hire people who I pay way more than I pay myself in the business, right? From a senior team perspective. And you have to have that balance across the board. Otherwise, those sort of big targets and big goals would be very difficult to achieve with just a junior team. Expensive, but very, very worth it. And also make it fun. But at the end of the day, you as an entrepreneur need to survive. So my board actually really got me to start paying myself, which was quite exciting. And then the other thing that I had to learn to do is really run proper operations. Yes, we are a startup. We want to continue thinking like a startup, even though now we're at that point of growth inflection, right? But we have to keep thinking like a startup, but we also have to think like a big business, right? Act like a startup, think like a big business, create systems, processes, and structures that allow you to really scale nicely and effectively. So we learn to be lean. We focus on making sure we've got quality products from a technology perspective. Our practices from a technology perspective were up to scratch. And that way, we were able to land big blue chips as customers because we can now compete with an SAP at the same level from a quality perspective of providing technology that's solving problems and that actually works for customers. When you speak of those acquiring of those customers, initially I used to sort of focus on everyone and anyone. And then I learned the hard way that, your smaller customers were not paying me on time. Some of them were not even paying me. So I then shifted the strategy to say, what market segment do I really want to focus on? That's where we focus on the blue chip strategy, where we focus on like big blue chips. So we've got some big names as customers. Actually, all our customers right now, from a cargo customer perspective, are blue chips. But we wanted to be tech focused. We could have actually changed our model and become a logistics broker who just connects and gives people a call. But we really focus our business on building technology that can very much scale. And let's not just build businesses that fit into one community. Let's build businesses that anyone in any country can actually say, well, let me actually go and onboard this South African business and use their platform or use their products from an international relevance perspective. I gained a lot from the strategic partnerships in the sense of Founders Factory, Standard Bank, and other strategic partnerships we've built. And I was never the kind of guy who would try and sell something that we don't have, which is why our online presence, yes, at the moment it's not as great as it's supposed to be. It's actually to an extent non-existent, because I was focusing on really in the background building the right technology, so that if I start marketing it properly and I get an influx of 30 B2B blue chips coming in 1 month, I can service them without an issue. So I think that's one mistake we always make as startups. We overmarket ourselves, and when it comes time to hitting the ground running, we then struggle. And sales-wise, it's been very tough, right? Coming in with a new product in the market, pricing has been an issue, fighting with customers over pricing. They give you long payment sales cycles, and they ask you to go into pilot first before they actually sign up to use your platform fully. And also, attracting customers who really want to pay you is a lot of work. You have to go out there and be an extrovert where you need to be, harness a lot of relationships from that perspective. And then attracting funding wise, we've attracted to date as we speak, over 50 million Rand in early stage equity funding. We obviously have even a bigger sort of debt fund debt amount that we can access through our strategic partners. So how do we build an attractive fundable business, right? So number one is really building an auditable business that is also investable, making sure that you have a solid business. Anyone can come in and check out your business, say, this is actually an investable business. With a solid team that's building fundamentals, where your unit economics makes sense, your inflow, outflows make sense, and you're really building a business based out of solid fundamentals. And also build a business that has systems, processes, and structures that become much bigger than just the founder. So that if I get hit by a bus today, the business can actually continue, investors don't lose their money, and the business can continue even growing without the founder. So those are the kind of business that we need to build, which are not dependent on us. That's how I built, from a tech perspective, the high growth business. And also, you want a high impact business that is quite sustainable and in a defendable market. But for me, the key learning, having gone through a couple of funding rounds, is you actually really want to build a business that's self-funded and that's self-sustaining and that's profitable. There's nothing that beats that, because, in my world, I've been rejected 95% of the time. I've spoken to hundreds of investors, local and international, and sometimes I've had to be bailed out by my shareholders and things like that, right? Because you can't raise on time. So that's why that building, thinking about profitability earlier on is very, very, very important, even if there's a lot of funding available for your business. And, one of the key things is with all that rejection, it's not a reflection on you or your business. It's really people have different mandates. They have different multiple reasons of rejection, whether you don't fit their mandate or you're too small, you're too big. It's not a reflection of your model or your business. So you should just keep going. Someone will really believe in you. But when you get that funding, don't go out and buy a G-Wagon, right? So, and when that money, when it comes into your bank account, even from customers, it's very attractive. You feel like running away out of the country with the money. It's very important that whatever money is there, you're frugal about it, and you manage it and run it in a sustainable way. And to that point, let's avoid the venture capital trap, right? Venture capital trap, you find a lot of tech companies where you're in the business just to raise money, raise Series A, Series B, Series C, up to Series Z, which was key learning for me because fundraising takes time, and it takes you away from really building the business. So let's really go out there and build businesses that create value, and financial reward follows value. Value doesn't follow financial reward, which is a big mistake that I made initially, where I was thinking, let me make money first and then I'll create value later, but it doesn't work that way. So let's really build sustainable and profitable businesses. Partnerships were very important for me. So I've got one or two more slides and then I'm done. Partnerships are very important for me. We really could not have done what we've done without the strategic partnerships. So there were three elements of partnerships that I had to be thinking about. The venture partnerships, which is where I went with Founders Factory and all the hundreds of incubators that are supported by SEDA, those are venture partners. Then in the tech world, I had product partnerships where, from a fintech perspective, I'm integrated into Standard Bank systems, they help me integrate into other systems from a product partnership that enhance the value of the Tripplo platform. And then now we just structured some very, very exciting commercial partnerships with guys like Standard Bank. Obviously Standard Bank has the biggest fleet business in Africa, right? So, and those are some of my customers. So it's exciting to be able to partner with such a bank that can provide commercial value, not just in South Africa, but in tens of other countries around the board. But with partnerships, it's extremely vital that, there has to be something in it for everyone, right? You find that many of us have tried to do partnership. There are some partnerships of mine that have failed because there was not something in it for everyone. So I couldn't strike that balance from a partnership perspective. So trust me, to build a solid high growth business, you cannot do it by yourself. You have to be thinking about, let me do co-opetition and things like that from a partnership perspective. So I'm going to close out with some of the realities, right? And this journey, I'm sure a lot of you will attest, is a complete roller coaster that does not stop. It's not like a roller coaster at the game area where you after 2 minutes it stops and then you get out of it. This roller coaster is ongoing and ongoing. So it's really, I have enough respect for all of you entrepreneurs who have also faced some of these things that I have personally faced, right? Where most times you're nervous, you're anxious, you're always tired, you're stressed. You've got bank letters coming at you from all angles. You're dropping the ball at home with your family. You're always angry. Health is a challenge. You're misunderstood. You lose a lot of friends. And you're always working because the buck ends with you. There's no time for anything else. You're always broke. You feel behind. There's no sleep and there are no weekends, right? So I'm sure a lot of you understand a lot of these lows, and I'm sure there are a lot more lows that are missed here. The highs, on the other hand, really trump the lows from my side, right? For example, when you're really changing the lives of hundreds and millions of people, like when I go into some of these retail stores, I can actually pick up a product and say, Tripplo was responsible for bringing this into a Pick and Pay, as an example. And you can actually see the impact where we've got thousands of drivers whose lives are being impacted in a positive way. And you're also building a good legacy, and customers are giving you very good feedback. Myself as a person, I have grown much more than I would have grown anywhere else, right? I've had to learn legal. Right now, if I look at a legal document, I can understand it because I've had to experience it. Something that would never have happened if I was in corporate. My level of thinking is different. I own my own time. I'm creating value for myself and many other stakeholders. And also realizing my purpose in life, which is I'm a builder, right? Of really just building and achieving your vision and empowering many other people. When you hear of stories of your employees, now being able to afford to buy a house, to buy a car, to pay for someone's school fees, it's really unbelievable. But the one final thing is, the value that I've created with my strategic partners involved, I would have needed to work for 117 years in corporate, right? Just in the last 3 years. So really, really appreciate the strategic partners we're about to hear the journey from in a moment. So that's the Tripplo journey. Thank you so much for listening. I hope there was one or two things that you were able to pick up. And here's my QR code. You can find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
As introduced, my name is Tabiso and I'm the CFO at Founders Factory Africa. I also serve on the board of Tripplo, and I've been serving on the board of Tripplo since we weaned Victor out of our venture build program. And some of those challenges that Victor shared with you, I'm very, very privileged to say that I've been part of that journey. We've seen the gray hairs from the 117 years that Victor has shared with you. As much as it's just 3 years, I think that journey of being an entrepreneur really is a very fast-paced journey, and is easily enough to just make your hairs go gray. But very, very privileged to have been part of that journey and just to watch and just having that front row seat, witnessing the innovation that has come about through this business. So to date, we have really executed on this belief through two programs within Founders Factory. The first one is the Venture Build program. This is where we work with early stage entrepreneurs who really have an idea, and at that point it's purely a concept, and we really work with them to validate their core hypothesis, really validating this idea into the market, and helping them deliver the first initial solution, which I think you would hear from technology entrepreneurs, which is really an MVP, and hopefully launching into the market with a few paying customers. The second one is the Venture Scale program, and this is where we are working with some relatively established businesses, but still within the early stage, between 0 to 3 years, where they are still trying to get to product market fit, and trying to get some paying customers, and looking to grow their product and grow their businesses across other markets. So these are the two key programs where we partner with entrepreneurs, and Tripplo essentially came through our Venture Build program, and I'm going to share with you in the next slide in terms of what that Venture Build program looks like. So Founders Factory's business model is really built on what we believe are the key needs of entrepreneurs. And this is true for South Africa, and it's also true for the rest of Africa. The three key needs really are access to capital, the second one being access to world-class talent, as well as access to partnerships that really open up markets for them. So what we do is really make investments, firstly being the cash. We invest up to $250,000 of cash into the business. And this is what we would have also done with Victor when he came into the Venture Build program. We invested $250,000 at that point to help come from the concept that was venture that Victor had developed. You heard him speak about the spreadsheets that he was really trying to figure out in terms of how do I really make my business more efficient. And we do so really looking at a venture to say, at this point, this is the concept. How do we move from a concept, which is the idea, to actually building out a venture? So what is the venture design process? The venture design process is really where we identify and form these new business opportunities, starting really with the challenges that humans face. And you heard Victor talk about the experience that he had when he was still running his own business before actually coming out to build this technology platform. So at the core of the venture design process is really having that empathy for humans that are the users of the product that you're trying to build. So we really anchor our venture design process on human-centered design, which really is a process that looks at the users that you're developing this product for. So you're starting really with the user in mind, you're starting with the person in mind to say, what really are the pain points for these users? What are the pain points for the people that I'm developing this product for? Having empathy for those users, and then starting to ideate your product to say, okay, how do I actually solve for these challenges? How do I solve for this problem? So with the output really of that exercise being a clear opportunity that actually combines a validated user need with a large commercial market. Because again, there's no point in developing a product that nobody wants to pay for because there's no market there. So really it's important to understand what do users really want and what do users really need and what are they willing to pay for? And then you build your product from that point. A solution hypothesis is really on how the problem will actually be addressed and how this business is going to be built around that, and identifying that market advantage that speaks to how for us, it really speaks to how we as Founders Factory Africa and all the other partners that we have within our business will be able to create value for that opportunity. And then identifying those strategic partnerships that will actually unlock within our Venture Build program. These are some of the key disciplines that we have within the team. I mentioned we've really put together a world-class team across the various disciplines that are required to build from an idea to actually building out a venture. So Founders Factory has a team of product leads, product designers who really are helping the founders to actually build the right product, solving the right problem, and for the right user. And then we've got a team of growth people who really are thinking about how can we help Tripplo move from 0 customers to 10 customers, from 10 customers to 100 customers, from 100 to 100,000 customers. So really working with the founder, in this case, Victor, to actually develop that growth strategy that will help him move from just being a South African logistics tech platform to being Africa-wide, to actually being global, to having this global vision that he now has. And technology team also helping us to put together a really good technology stack, and also helping Victor with actually hiring the team members that he requires to be able to build a technology that is fit for scale. We've got a team of investments that have also supported Victor from time to time in terms of just helping him with shaping the fundraising strategy, shaping the narrative, and being able to connect him to the international investors, local investors, international investors. And we also pride ourselves in having that global network, because not only South African investors are going to help us build the businesses that we want to build, you actually need a global network of investors to be able to build sustainable businesses. So that is also very, very critical. And then partnerships, this is where Standard Bank comes in. Sashil is going to talk a little bit more about that. But partnerships are really important for us to unlock value for our businesses, and really brokering relationships between our businesses with corporate partners to be able to get into that market very quickly. So this is where we see, this is where we have a team of business development talent that is able to really walk the journey with the founder and be able to connect them to the corporates that actually have these large customer bases and large distribution networks to be able to scale faster. And then within the finance and operations team, this is the team that I'm currently leading within Founders Factory Africa. And this is where we're really supporting our entrepreneurs with building a fit for purpose team, but also building an operating model that is really going to support the growth ambitions of the venture. We've supported Tripplo in terms of building the product that you now see, which is the logistics technology platform. The technology team has also worked very closely with Victor in actually building the minimum viable product, and also just building the technology that underpins this the platform. Corporate partnering through our relationship with Standard Bank, we're able to broker this partnership to be able to pilot some of those products at the very early stages as the business was going into the market. In terms of fundraising support, again, capital is needed at every point of this journey. So we've been able to also help Victor in terms of leading negotiations to be able to raise some of the capital that they've raised to date. The most recent one, last year, there was an investment of $1 million from Standard Bank, which Sashini will probably speak to again, but really just supporting the founders with really pushing forward the investment. And most recently, we also have another imminent investment that we're looking to close, that we're working very closely with Victor on. In terms of talent, it's really just helping the founder to really source the best talent possible. This could be purely introductions, or it could be actually making the time to sit with the entrepreneur in the interviews and finding the best talent for the roles for their critical roles. And as I said earlier, I sit on the board of Tripplo, and I've been on the board from the time that it actually got spun out from our venture build program, and really supporting Victor on those strategic initiatives to grow the business further.
The way we work together and the way we've connected, in creating Tripplo from its early stages or from its concept stage to where it is today. Just quickly, some background from the Standard Bank perspective. We kind of started this partnership with Founders Factory Africa, to be able to source diverse and unique capabilities that solve challenges within the African context. And we know that, there's a lot of founders and entrepreneurs out there in Africa solving on the ground challenges, right? So that's our intent when we started this partnership with FFA. And the two pillars that we hinge the partnership on is one, growing Africa's ideas, growing Africa's economy. So Standard Bank's our vision is our purpose is growth, and we want to improve the future of Africa by investing in a growth. And what this is underpinned by in the relationship is, we're building Africa's startup economy with Founders Factory Africa. We are a leader in market innovation in this type of model to provide support, partnerships, access to capabilities, and also insights, and also the ability to test and learn quite quickly through this channel, right? What we're trying to do holistically is to create more jobs and access to jobs, to enable growth through ecosystems and access and funding, to harness the talent across the African continent, and to create successful, lasting, and sustainable businesses. On the other hand, Victor spoke to it a bit, and so did Tabiso. It's about strategic partnerships. So access to exciting new distribution channels and ecosystem development. So, essentially, what we're looking at doing here is to, partnering with Founders Factory and the different businesses within the portfolio, really just to rapidly launch new innovative solutions. There's a mutual growth through commercial partnerships. Victor spoke about it. It's about creating two-way value. It improves our ability to partner with early stage businesses. We know that early stage businesses are highly risky, and sometimes, we're not sure if those businesses are going to continue, but it gives us this opportunity to work with them in the exciting problems they're trying to solve. And it also, what we say is that founders are great problem solvers, and they are closest to the customer. So understanding what they're trying to solve on the ground really gives us insights into the problems that do exist across the continent in various places. In unlocking value, there's three parts that we play a role in. One is identifying opportunities with the founder and the business that we're trying to create. So, that's really deep diving on what's the two-sided opportunity, what can we do in the market, what problems are we trying to solve, what products or solutions do we need in order to solve that. And it's not always as clear cut. So hypothetically, we understand sort of, here's a really cool solution, and here's a really intense problem in the market, and this is how we want to solve it. But that route to execution it's not always a straight line, let's call it that. So, sometimes we talk about pivoting businesses and we talk about new ideas and new concepts, and the only way to get to understand if it really works or if it was a problem in the beginning is to validate that, right? So we start with a small pilot. Let's go back. We identify a host of opportunities in a partnership and problems we're trying to solve. The second is then really bucketing and validating whether those problem statements exist, really testing whether we are solving it in the right way. So there's a couple of things we do within here is we find a small consortium of customers that we can test with and get key learnings out of. We really want to see whether we're solving the right problem, number one, or we've got the right solution to the problem that we've identified. So that phase of validation is iterative. We keep iterating and validating. So sometimes it forces us to go back to the opportunities or to the business and say, are we solving the right problem in the space? Maybe we need to iterate on the business. So, Victor talked about, taking the product to market from a Tripplo perspective, where we're trying to solve a problem for transporters and their fleets and managing their fleets. But as we started talking to these transporters and these fleet owners, we really understood that there was a challenge in finding work, right? So we went back and we said, we've got a host of transporters on our system and they're using the platform. Now they can't find work. So we went back and said, how do we connect work to these transporters? And that was when the logistics as a platform, was launched, where we're saying we will go and find work from big corporates and put it on a platform to give access to these transporters in order to match them to work opportunities. And then as we started talking to corporates over, through conversations, we realized that the internal corporate processes were not as efficient as they wanted to be, right? So it was very manual. They would use WhatsApp and spreadsheets and a whole bunch of stuff to communicate with their transporters. They have, zero visibility on where their loads are. They kind of didn't know how to plan when their different depots were receiving trucks, etc. And that's when the software as a service feature was launched in Tripplo. So as you can see, it was a very iterative approach working with Victor and Tripplo in, this is the opportunity, how do we validate it? And that forms new opportunities. Kind of speaking to the other piece around that is, for transporters, we realized that there were long waiting times between when they got paid. So, because the normal cycle for corporates to pay transporters, it's 30 to 45 days post-delivery or post-POD in the space. We realized there was a funding gap for these transporters for that 45 to 60 days, which makes it hard for them to do another load. So we realized, hey, there's a couple of things we can do. One is, can we give them an alternative to fund their fuel upfront so they're not putting as much capital into the load? And we know where the loads are coming from, so we don't give them cash so they can run off to Mauritius and have a holiday. We buy the fuel for them, right? The second piece is, can we pay them early so they don't have to wait out that working capital or that payment gap that they're going to have from the corporate? So paying for their fuel upfront, and then second, paying them on delivery of the goods based on when the corporate will pay. So there's a bunch of iterations in the work that we work on, and it's a lot of co-creation between the startup. So between Victor and myself and our teams, we continuously working with each other to kind of get to the point of what do we partner on, or where do we partner, and what those points are. And when we talk about two-way value, it's not a conversation where Victor and I would agree and say, hey, Victor, can we put this product on your platform? It gets a bit deeper, where you have to lock yourself into some form of legal or have guidance with regards to what that partnership looks like. So you could be best friends on the soccer field, but when it comes to a partnership or corporate startup relationship, you need to lock that in with some service level agreements or master agreements, so you can refer back to it. Also manages the dynamics of the partnership, and everyone's roles and responsibilities are clear on what needs to be done. So following on to that iterative process, so we're not trying to bundle up a whole bunch of opportunities to launch it all at once, right? So you pick on an opportunity that's quite sizable, you validate it, you might need to pivot it or update it or change it, you agree on some commercials, and you look at how do you scale that within the platform, within the distribution. So it's this iterative approach of conversation, strategy, validating some proof points, locking in some kind of value for both partners, and then scaling and growing that as you move forward. In concurrence to that, there's multiple ways of gaining investment. So from a Standard Bank perspective, we do strategic investments in businesses. So, with Tripplo, it's in a core part of our business where we're looking to really create value within logistics for our businesses. And we've got a business case where the partnership is showing value to both Tripplo and ourselves. That was a input into our own investment committees. And that's when we directly invested in the business, as Tabisa would have mentioned. But if you're a startup out there in the market, as you start testing and validating and proving that your business model works, proving that there's a scope and there's take up on whatever you're building, proving that you are solving a real life problem and people are buying into it, there's always the conversation for investment. So you might need some cash, to get you through the next 6 months of iterating your product or building your tech. So even though it's not a key requirement, it's something to keep in your mind is how do you fund the next evolution of your business and make sure those targets and goals are clear in your mind. For the next 6 months, I need to build X, Y, and Z and provide X, Y, and Z value to show that this is working. So keep that in mind as you're building out your businesses. I'm not going to spend too much more time, but I'm not going to go into this in detail. But this is kind of working together and co-creating, Tripplo and the technology and the business and the proposition and how we take this to market. After months and months of working together, we've landed on a proposition that's co-created between Tripplo and ourselves. This is how we take these things to market, and these are all the different partnerships and connection points within the value proposition. So there's Tripplo, the technology, Tripplo, the operations, but there's a bunch of efficiencies we're creating for customers. There's a bunch of value adds that we're offering transporters, and there's ways we can manage the risk. So think of how we aggregate this entire proposition into a single platform, which is Tripplo. And I mean, I'm gonna pause there, but I think the next few months is going to be interesting to watch, and it'll be super exciting. So follow our journey, and I hope this was insightful for you as future successful entrepreneurs. Thanks.
Of my 18 staff, actually 9 of those are technical team, and they're all fully employed by Tripplo. So I don't outsource any. I tried to outsource at the beginning, but because we're building deep tech, it was very difficult. You're actually difficult to control different time zones and everything else. So I had to bring it back in-house so we can control the quality of the code and the processes, etc. So to answer the question, we've got just over half the team is technology, is technical. The developers, quantity analysts, data quality guys and things like that.
We started getting involved with Tripplo right at the beginning of really thinking about how do we move those spreadsheets into a proper technology platform. And the interventions really were working with our product team. We have a team of product developers, product designers, who really mapped out with Victor the product strategy, essentially being what problem are you trying to solve, who are you solving it for, and how do we actually get this business into that market with paying customers. The other intervention would have been with the technology team. So Victor spoke about the tech team that he now has today. Before that, there was no tech team. So we actually got involved right from the beginning before he actually hired his first chief technology officer. And I actually remember even the hiring of the chief technology officer, some of our team was actually sitting in that interview. So that's one of the many interventions that we actually provided the business. From a growth perspective, I spoke about we have a team that is really looking at what are the channels that this product could potentially grow into, how do we develop a sales pipeline, working very closely, hand-holding with Victor as a team. As Sachin mentioned, that we've become a family because we've been working together from those 2 years ago, with some of the very first customers actually coming from Standard Bank and launching the product into the Standard Bank distribution network. So those are some of the I think I'll just highlight that, as well as the investments. I spoke about the investments earlier, which really is one. We invested $250,000 into this business, plus that operational support. But that $250,000 really can last a business so long. So again, at the end of the 12-month period, to really grow the business, grow the team, develop the product to further maturity required a bit more investment. And that's where Standard Bank came in with another investment. And right now we're actually talking to other investors who are looking to also make an investment to just grow the business further. So we're really looking at any discipline you could really think about in terms of going from the idea on a piece of paper, building out the venture and growing that venture even further. That's pretty much a summary of the interventions that we have provided to Victor and the business.
I think there's a span of opportunities, but if I had to really dive into it, I think the reality is that I think I spoke about it briefly earlier, is that founders and entrepreneurs are really amazing problem solvers. They're able to source and figure out a way to solve challenges quite simply by walking into a restaurant and seeing that the food ordering takes long or the queuing system is too long. And that's one thing you got to keep in your mind as a budding entrepreneur, is that when you work in a space, there's one, you got to look at kind of solving a customer challenge. That's the starting point. And I think Tabiso mentioned it as well. It's like kind of what is the real customer challenge that you're trying to solve, and what is the solution that will best fit in resolving that customer statement. And that's how a business evolves. It's starting with solving one challenge and it just grows from there. But if I have to look at pure digital and where some of the major opportunities are within technology, if you think about manual supply, if you look at logistics on its own, it's a massive industry. There's supply chain issues, there's manual tracking of information, there's ownership of trucks. So you got to find a passion and find a problem and resolve a problem in that way. So I think the guidance is more look at a customer, instead of looking at a technology first, look at the customer problem and how does technology help solve that customer problem. One last point I would like to add is that there's tons of challenges out there in the market. It's about drilling into it quite deeply and becoming the expert in that space. So if you look at any challenge, right, whether it's employer benefits or whether it's logistics, because the industry is so wide and so, it's quite big, different entrepreneurs can solve different parts of that problem statement. And at some point they will converge. So there's space for all entrepreneurs to try and create a dent in an industry itself, right? So don't be veered off if you see competition or other people playing in that space. If you really if you've identified a customer problem and you have a neat way of solving that, there's always potential to build that into a massive business.